All right. Well, I guess we'll get started, and if anybody else joins us, we can catch them up. Just want to touch base with you before the new session starts. See if there's anything going on in your classes that you want to bring up. Just a couple things from my end. Just want to encourage everybody to collaborate with your co-instructors, between the primary and co-instructor. We really would like to see more than just sharing the grading duties, and see what kind of ideas working together can come up with. So I want to encourage you to do that more. Another thing is, are any of you like creating your own videos, or adding audio or video elements to your class to connect with your students?
Tamara, this is RD. I need to do more of my own videos, but I have been using some external videos, and I'm sure we all know there are a lot of excellent sources out there,
Right.
especially the how to do it type videos when some student gets bogged down.
Right. Well, what I found is I've been making videos for the assignments that I found that students may struggle with the most. And sometimes just having the instructor explain it rather than reading the directions. And even if sometimes I'll show them a sample of what something, for example, the word assessment where they're doing APA. I find sometimes it helps if I can show the students a sample of what it looks like. And I don't know, it's just a good way for students to, I guess, see us as real people. If they, so I found it's worked well. Let's see. So, I mean, it's just another way to connect with students, and, and just make that bond. And like I said, some people actually, if they hear the directions, it seems to connect better than reading them. Another thing I wanted to just let you know for the future is the faculty, coaches, and the program managers are piloting using Blackboard Collaborate for office hours. I think we did that in the past, but there's a newer version. So we're piloting it this term, and then if everything goes well, it'll be rolled out for everybody to do in the fall.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a little easier because the student can just, what I did is I put a button on the navigation panel so students can just click there, and it might be a little easier for them to get to those virtual office hours. So I've just started using it for the session, and I mean, seems like it was pretty easy. It worked with Google Chrome. I know in the past when I used it some years ago, it only worked with one browser, but now it seems to be, easy to work with. So hopefully that everything will go smoothly. Did any of you worked with Collaborate in the past?
Yes, RD, I have, and it worked really well. So that's great news, Tamara. Thank you for passing that along.
Okay, so I anticipate that as long as everything goes according to plan, that everyone will be using it in the fall.
Yes, I worked with it also, and the only problems were when students did not have the updated version of Java to access it. That's what the IT support team was saying. And I believe that's because they were using Chrome, but I think Chrome's improved and now has updated their Java and Flash.
Right.
So
That's exactly the problem I had in the past. I'd forgotten that was it, the Java. I had issues using it with certain browsers, but I tried it yesterday with Google Chrome and it worked just fine. So I think maybe, yeah, the improvements will make a big difference.
Right, and I also have students to update their Java and Flash manually through Chrome if they do have a problem.
Right.
And that worked, but then I just went to the virtual blog area just so I could keep it all in Blackboard.
Right.
All the correspondence instead of using Skype or some outside source.
Right. Ideally, yes, it would be, if we can keep it all within Blackboard, it would be good.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'll look forward to using that again, because that I did have participation when I used that.
Right,
Much
it's easier.
participation.
I went ahead
Yeah.
and just put it on the navigation bar so that, and called it virtual office hours. And I think that might, yeah, that might make it easier for students to get there. And so more students might use it. Do any of you have, like, do your students use your virtual office hours, or do they mostly contact you through email and phone calls?
I've had both, but I've also had students contact me during office hours when it was not during office hours, and I wouldn't realize they contacted me till I logged into
Right.
office hours and realized it was, during the midweek they sent a message to office hours. So I
Okay.
emailed them and asked, what can I help you with? I'm sorry, but I'm there on Saturdays.
Right.
But I didn't have anybody this past session or the session before.
Yeah, I know personally that I haven't had a lot of students using it, so I'm just wondering if this will help, that it's easier to get there.
Tamara, I rarely have anyone, and this goes back a long way. Not to pat myself on the back, but it seems as if we keep up with emails and grading and feedback and all that. They don't seem as needy. You know, we hear from them and ask your instructor and all that. The few that I've had over the years asked some follow up when I was instructing in criminal justice, had a lot of questions about career opportunities and stuff like that during virtual office hours.
Okay.
But basically, it has been very limited response.
Okay, and maybe that is it. Maybe as long as, we're keeping up with everything else, maybe they don't feel the need. But we'll see how it goes this term.
Yeah, I look forward to it, because my highest participation ever was when I used the Collaborate.
Okay.
And that was ever for any other version of office hours, but then we strayed away from it because of the problems with everyone having access to it. So I look forward to trying it again.
Yep, I do too. Okay.
And one assignment that I can think of, because I was listening and thinking, and then I didn't want to interrupt you, about doing a video for, is the Excel assignment.
Yes.
This session, in the past two sessions, I should say, students had trouble. It was as if they weren't understanding what they were reading. Like for apples, they would put 1.8 apples, and I would always give. So it should have been row one, not. And they put it in row one, but they didn't put 1 dot apples. But when it came to the number, they put 1.8, 1.8. So it was just as if they weren't understanding that.
Right.
That it was the row 1, 8 apples, not 1.8 apples. So I gave everybody another chance and explained to them that it's unlikely you would have 1.8 apples.
That's actually, Carol, that's actually happened in several classes, and that is being fixed. Brenda had shared with me, I've heard that. I had that in my own class. I've heard it from at least 4 instructors that students are misunderstanding that. So I believe Brenda told me that is being corrected or clarified in the course, so that doesn't keep happening, because a lot of students are doing that.
Okay,
good. You can ask them to redo it. I've been giving them credit because it seems to be, a pretty consistent issue that a lot of students are reading it wrong.
Oh, okay. I just gave them another opportunity to explain to them, and they all thanked me for the extra opportunity. And then they did perfect. Everything else was right, and I just said, well, if you can do the rest right, you can at least, get this part right, so we're all good to go. But good, right. I'm glad, because I was send everybody an email this semester or this session and let them know that, this is a mistake that's been made in the past. Please understand what you're reading and make sure
you. Very, very common mistake. That particular assignment had many students doing it the way that your students were. So that was definitely something that had to get corrected.
Okay.
Overall, Tamara, I'd like to thank everyone who revised that Excel portion, because that used to be the real hang up in the whole course, as I'm sure all of you know. And students, the last couple of new versions seem to have a lot more confidence. They all usually admit to being fearful of it unless they've used it in work or something previously. But you know, hats off to those who were involved in that move, because I think it's helped our students have a greater confidence in all the course, actually.
Right. No,
Yes.
I agree with you.
Yes.
Okay. The
And the
last,
Microsoft Word.
right.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Oh, speaking of Microsoft Word,
sure. Go ahead.
the Word assessment that they have to complete.
Right.
I shared a video a couple sessions ago when I taught with Julie, and she added this resource to the virtual library. It walks right through all of the steps that are required to create an APA formatted paper, and
That's great.
it walks through each of the steps that are required in the assessment that they do. So I've been sharing that with the students, and it's helped tremendously. I mean, you know, the running header, the
Right.
double space, the
Right.
margin size.
Right. I'm gonna have to take a look at that, because that is exactly what, you know, all of that APA, if you can walk people through it. I mean, all students, I don't care what course they're in, that's always a challenge. Things like
Right.
the writing header, making sure the double spacing, indenting, all of that. That's always a challenge for students. So that's what I thought would be a good opportunity to use a video. Because, you know, some students, it's maybe the first time they've ever tried to use APA, and it just, you know, it just takes practice. So if they see it and then they can, you know, then they do it, it's going to really help them down the road.
Right. And I also pointed to the example in the Bryden Stratton new APA guide where it shows the APA formatted
Yep.
paper so that you can see what that sample that's provided to them, what the end result will look like. And then when they follow the steps, well, anyway, it worked very well. And I can email you the link to that, but Julie did add it to the virtual library in the LibGuides.
Okay. Yeah,
area.
no, that's great. You know, it's amazing how well some students respond to video, or, you know, using auditory resources. I mean, everybody's different. And some students, I've done this for years with difficult or challenging assignments, you know, walk the students through it, explain it, and it really does help a lot of people.
Yes.
So, yes. All right. So I don't want to keep it too long. The last thing I wanted to talk about a little and kind of just get some discussion with is, you know, we all have had situations where a student says they're having an emergency, and maybe they're asking you to open the next week of the class because they have an emergency. And I just wanted to go over and kind of clarify what a real emergency is. And I'm just going to give you an example of something that happened this session, and, you know, no names, but a student came to the instructor and said she had an emergency. She was going out of town and she wanted to see the next week's class. Is that a real emergency? You know, I mean, what would a student, like if a student came to you and said that they had to go out of town because a family member was ill, you know, what would you do in a case like that?
I wish them well. Well, what I've done is I've downloaded all the lectures. I could email them a copy of the lecture, and then over there in the left-hand navigational area where they have the course assessments, there's an assessment for that week. They can see what that assessment will be.
Okay.
And point them to that. It's the discussion that there's nothing I can really help out with. I don't, or can I?
Robert, what do you think?
Sarah, I'm probably overly generous, but today's online students have so many demands, a lot of them unexpected. We can either question them or take their word for it, and I usually err on the side of taking their word for it. So I wasn't as familiar with the type of alternative that Carol just mentioned. I learned a lot from her when I was her co-instructor. So chalk up another one, Carol. That's a great idea, and I would definitely be in favor of it. I know from my own children and grandchildren, today's student generation is not like the 1950s and 60s when I came along, and I'm dating myself, but I think that we have to be, as realistic as we can, certainly as flexible as we can. That I know I may not be, in the majority on that, but that's my personal approach.
Okay. Well, Carol, that was an interesting approach. The problem in a case like that, if a student tells you it's an emergency, but it's not, even if they're going out of state, they probably could still access the computer. In a situation like that, we don't want to open a future week. And the reason for that is because it opens it for everybody else. There's no way to open it just for that student. So,
right.
So we wouldn't do that. If it's something that is so drastic, then I would take it to Brenda and see what, and let her make that call. But sometimes with students may think, if they're going on a trip or, that we can't just open the week, and let everybody work ahead. And one of the reasons we don't want to do that is exactly what you said, discussion. It can't, they're not going to be able to, participate in discussion if they're not available. So, if it was an emergency, something really, really drastic, then, I would go to Brendan and see what we could do. But that was an interesting idea, Carol. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, because they could print the next week's lecture and take it with them.
Right.
And they could print the assessment that will be provided over in the left-hand navigational area, where they give all the course assessments. Mm-hmm. And they could print that and bring it with them, and then they could at least read the lecture. Now the discussions, we could give them partial credit when they return for, creating an initial post.
Right. Or
Mara?
Yes.
This is Eric Malmer.
Hi, Eric.
Hi, how are you? Since we're on discussion, I just had a question. I like the new setup of the new class. The one thing I found, and I'll just getting other people's ideas, that students kind of lose focus on not talking about the program, but sort of talking about the scenario that's in discussion.
Okay.
Like having lunch with their coworker instead of talking about the value of the skills. And I was just wondering how people kind of focus them on the skills of the class and not having, like the last one has to do with having lunch or something. So.
Okay.
Or if people witness the same thing, they kind of lose their focus on the scenario instead of the skill they're trying to teach them.
Right. What do you guys think?
What I've done is I've gone back to the lecture material myself and asked them questions about, what did you think about this part of the lecture? What ideas did you gain, or what questions do you have about any specific part of the lecture, and pinpoint them right back to the lectures to try and get them back on track of where, like we're discussing Microsoft Word, what recommendations would you make or the steps to complete? What are the steps to complete, creating a running header? Instead of, yes, I don't like wacky fonts either, but, we're learning APA and we're learning Microsoft Word, pointing them back to parts of the lecture about actual hands-on scenarios with Microsoft Word.
Eric, are you? Oh, sorry, Carol, I thought you were done.
I'm done.
Okay. Eric, are you posting your essential questions in discussion? Because that's another way to, we should be posting them in discussion, and that's another way to get them focused on the skill.
Right. I do, and I do it as a first post, but then I have to actually read that first post. That tends to be some of the issue.
And they're not doing that? Okay.
Some are.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I get what you, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I can bring that up with Brenda as well. Because I've kind of had the same experience at times with students and the questions.
And for the week 7 PowerPoint, the
Right.
area that I mentioned at our last get
Yep.
together, what I've done is I went to week 7, and I think it asked, of the skills you learned while creating this PowerPoint presentation. And then it asks of this, which skill would help you most in your career. And so many people talked about the soft skills.
Right.
I changed that, and I put PowerPoint in bold in front of which PowerPoint skills will you be using, will be most beneficial for you in the workforce. And doing that, I've had people actually talk about PowerPoint and not talk about the soft skills that they include within the PowerPoint. And that helped get them back on track to PowerPoint
Right.
and less
Yeah.
the skills within the PowerPoint. Because it seemed like when they were including the skills within the PowerPoint, they lost focus on the actual PowerPoint, creating the PowerPoint.
Right. I remember we talked about this last time, that they were talking about the soft skills.
Yeah, but this has been a huge improvement by including that word PowerPoint in bold, so that they don't lose focus, and you'll go back right to dependability or something, which are important, but
right. No, I'll share that with Brenda as well, because that might be something that we might consider doing in in all the classes if it really made a difference.
Yes. Well, it was easier for me too, or maybe we were both misinterpreting the all reflection rubric, because it asks, to answer the question in detail, but the question didn't really pinpoint back to PowerPoint. It just asked skills. So students, again, were just taking that for the skills they included. I gave them another chance, of course.
Okay, of course. Right, and that's
and they
good,
did very well once I gave them another chance, and I could understand their confusion, and that's when I flagged it and said, "Whoa, please, not again."
All right, but I will share that with Brenda as well. If others are having the same experience, that's something we might want to look at, revising.
Yes.
Is there anything else anyone wanted to bring up, or issues you're having?
No.
Okay.
No.
No, thanks, Meryl.
Okay. All right, then I am going to let you go, because it's been almost a half hour and I know it's a busy day. And if there's anything that comes up, just, contact me, and, we'll go from there. So thank you for attending today. And I will send a recording out. This time I made sure it's recording. And I will send it out for everybody just for reference. So,
thank you very much.
okay. Thank you all for coming. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.